Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Hap May with a legal play.
All right, and I am Chelsea El-Azzi. I've got an interesting question for you today.
Okay.
Why does a hitman need a tax plan?
Okay. That's a fun question to deal with. And basically that's a lead into the discussion of why things that might be deemed criminal activity may be taxable and how that plays into both the compliance with the tax code and potential prosecution
Yeah.
Of this.
And I do want to back up just a little bit. Just speaking of our client base, do we currently represent any hitman?
I do not know of anybody we currently represent who is either a hitman or being accused of being a hitman.
That we know of.
However, I mean, one of the reasons this topic comes up is there was a point where I actually did represent somebody. This is going over 30 years ago, but I did have a number of criminal lawyers that had a case where a man was accused of being a hitman, that having done murder for hire arrangement, stuff like that, and they were concerned that in addition to that case, which ultimately he was acquitted of in the process, but they were worried that in addition to that, they may go after him for income tax evasion, not reporting income, things of that nature. And the federal prosecutors do this. Most famous case is the Al Capone case, where Al Capone was a Prohibition era mobster who sold booze and made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And he sold booze and hires it. If you're not familiar with it, that's going back to the 1930s.
Yeah, but Al Capone, I mean,
Al Capone, he was a very, very interesting historic character in the process.
But they couldn't get him on any of the actual criminal charges.
Right, so they couldn't get it. They couldn't get him on the illegal selling of booze during Prohibition, nor of any of the hits or violent crimes that kind of went along with that territory. But he did live a lifestyle and have a lot of money and property and wealth, and he didn't pay income tax. And they were able to prove that. And for that, they were then able to convict him of income tax evasion, put him in prison for almost all the rest of his life. They only let him out after he was sort of not mentally competent at that point in time. He did spend some time in Alcatraz as a result of that. So even though they couldn't prove kind of the underlying crime, there is a crime for income tax evasion, and he was prosecuted for that. And it's done, not on a routine basis, but oftentimes I have been called in on a case where a criminal is accused of a lot of things, and their criminal defense attorneys want to make sure they pay their taxes. And there's some discussions I've had with both staff people and other people in the profession, because there are a lot of accountants, tax professionals who take that case. And but my attitude is a little different to that. Here I have somebody who wants to pay tax, who wants to comply. Now, given his motivations are not, what we normally have, but why should somebody who has some income, wants to put it on a tax return, wants to pay taxes on it, not be able to do so because they're not a tax professional in this case?
Right. And I do want to, say, we keep using the word criminal, and that can be anywhere on the spectrum,
Yes.
And whether or not they are guilty or innocent, we're just trying to help them comply with, the tax regulations.
And that's true. That's true. I mean, that's the process. And a lot of times I don't even meet these people in the process. Criminal lawyers send over the information. We get information, 1099s, look at bank accounts and things like that. In a few cases I've seen and talked to them. Had them either sign in the old days, actually sign a tax return and file it by mail. Nowadays, sign the authorization for us to e-file in the process. And it's now that's a little different than tax plan.
Correct.
But I mean, it's a plan by which the accused person would make sure that they are in tax compliance and they, you know,
I guess a good general plan to have for anybody, criminal or otherwise, hitman or otherwise, is if you do have some kind of accession to wealth, some kind of income,
right?
maybe pay taxes. Go
Yes,
ahead and file your tax returns.
yes, that is good advice. Process, because whether or not the money was legitimately earned, whether it was legally earned, the fact that it's now there is in fact income that there should be some taxes paid on
Yeah,
in the process.
yeah. And in my federal income tax in law school, that was kind of that was a fun class, looking at, you know, these people in history who had criminal cases, and their biggest issue was the fact that they had not paid income tax on their income from these, you know, illegal activities. And the IRS didn't care how you got it; they just wanted you to
Right, and you know, a lot of
pay over your taxes.
a lot of times people that have committed no crime that don't file tax returns or don't declare all their income typically aren't prosecuted when audits come and major adjustments are had. But if you couple that with the fact that there is, you know, an accusation or an ongoing criminal investigation, or perhaps a, you know, ongoing indictments for more serious criminal offenses, they can easily add on the if income tax evasion charge, and maybe make that stick when some of the other cases won't stick.
So what's the difference between, you know, making sure you get your tax filings in versus having a tax plan?
Well, I mean, a tax plan. I've sat down with people who says, okay, over, you know, here's my business plan. You know, I'm going to invest in this business over the next 10, 15 years. I am going to build that business, and here's the projected revenues for that business. And then, you know, I plan eventually to get either in whole or in part start to have an exit plan that kicks in 7, 10, you know, 15 years later in the process. And you've got to tan out, okay, initial investment, depreciation, and you figure out, you match how much cash is going to be needed to put in, how much cash is going to be taken out when the tax consequences hit.
And you have to say, though, ethically speaking, if you are planning to open a hitman business, if you want someone to help you plan your income and tax.
That is an assignment I will not make.
Yeah. We would be obligated to report any criminal activity that we know would be happening if it came across our desk.
On another cases that I've had back during the 80s, there were these savings and loan fraud cases where borrowers borrowed a lot of money, and then the market crashed. There had been some false financial statements given, and many of those did wind up getting prosecuted. Some of them went to prison, you know, but a lot of them wound up with these big judgments against them. FDIC and other federal agencies that guarantee loans. Resolution Trust Corporation was formed just to do that, and they found themselves in a bunch of problems. And many of them came to me in the process and says, you know, is this taxable income in the process? And you know, although it varied from case to case, I can remember one case where somebody had borrowed $200 million, bought a bunch of real estate with it. Then you know the market crashed, foreclosures, wound up selling that real estate for $100 million. So hey, they paid $200 million. They sold it for $100 million. They, you know, the $100 million to pay off debts. They still owed $100 million. But there's no real income because they still owed the money in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the case where, you know, by and large, there's some cases where they probably did earn fees or something. But if they just still continue to owe the money, that's not income. Borrowing money by itself, even though you have this, you know, asset that you purchase or cash that you got from getting the loan, that is not income. So some of those, we could honestly say, in filing a tax return, they didn't pay taxes because they didn't have income.
Right. So what's the summary? What's the takeaway? Why does a hitman or anyone need a tax plan?
One, because you need to file your taxes. Two, because if you have this underlying accusation of criminal activity, you have extra scrutiny. And so you don't want to compound your problems by not having filed or paid your.
That's pretty good in a nutshell, I think.
Right. Okay, well, this is Hatman with Legal Play.
And if you like this video, you find it useful, please like and subscribe and share to your friends.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hal.